Don't forget to stick around through the end of the video for information on our Arrive Serpentor Arrive giveaway. 1. A blind lawyer with a name that defines alliteration. 1. A highly trained and dangerous assassin who could reasonably be accused of being a Raphael cosplayer. The 3rd, a psychopath assassin that can use any item as a lethal projectile. Daredevil, Elektra, and Bullseye, respectively, are a trio that do not mix well, but often find themselves blended together in combat. Daredevil, better known as Matthew Michael Murdock, was not born blind, but became so after sacrificing himself to save another person. Chemicals spilled from a truck that blinded Matthew, or Matt, but also gave him the ability to see using a superhuman radar-like vision. After losing his father, who was killed by gangsters seeking revenge on the boxer for not throwing a fight, Matt sought to use his abilities to prevent similar actions from ever happening again. Matt trained his body and his senses through martial arts, and his mind through attending law school. With this training, Matt Murdock became Matt Murdock, attorney at law, to protect citizens in the legal system, and Daredevil to, let's say, fill in the blanks where the legal system fails. Elektra originated from the island of Cyprus, and due to an assault that happened at a very young age, began training in martial arts, initially for skills in self-defense. Elektra, creatively named Elektra Nachios, later attended Columbia University, where she met and grew feelings for none other than Matt Murdock. Elektra was forced to withdraw from school, however, after the death of her father, which can be attributed to a sort of spiral that led her to train more heavily in martial arts. Only the spiral continued, resulting in Nachios joining the Hand and training to be a ninja assassin. Nachios and Murdock continuously cross paths through stories in the Marvel Universe, though not always seeing eye to eye, per se, on their desired goals or missions, but this pair always leaves fans wanting more. Regardless of Elektra and Daredevil's differences, they never quite compare to the chaos one Benjamin Poindexter is known to bring under his alias, Bullseye. Bullseye has had different tellings of events from his youth prior to becoming a psychopathic assassin, but what is known for certain is that he is an incredibly dangerous human with the ability to make almost anything a deadly projectile and use it with amazing accuracy, rarely ever missing a target. Though these three may not blend well together in story, on page, or on screen, they do in this latest 3-pack from Hasbro's Marvel Legends line. Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan, aka JK of JK Collects, and remember, I'll be posting new videos almost daily as we get new adds to the collection. If that sounds of interest to you, please click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Every subscription also truly does mean a lot to me personally. Now in this episode, we are taking a closer look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends 6-inch scale Daredevil, Elektra, and Bullseye 3-pack. Hey everyone, welcome back, and there we have it, the Daredevil, the Man Without Fear 3-pack. What a cool looking cover, right? So we got the renderings of the figures doing their thing. Okay, let's check out the back so we can see more renders of figures, but also kind of a checklist of everything that we've got. So there's our Bullseye, Mr. Poindexter, there's Mr. Murdock, and there's Miss Nachios. So very cool, very excited to see all this stuff that's in here. Just a lot of neat things. Across the top, we've got Daredevil, Man Without Fear. Got the baton kind of extending up there a little bit. Some more renderings of the characters on the side. We've got Bullseye and Elektra. Very cool. So on the other side, we got a full panel of old Daredevil, Mr. Murdock himself. And okay, just such a cool presentation. We got the cityscape in the background. Just neat. All right, let's get in and see what we've got going on in here. Definitely excited about this one. I was very surprised to see it show up already. So I'm quite thrilled to pop into it with you. So let's get this box open. And obviously this one is, oh look, there's our pamphlet. Oh, wonderful. This one is a windowless or low plastic packaging, as I like to call it. Because there is still a little bit of plastic, right, in the tape and all that stuff. Yes, I say it every time. Let's see if it will slide out. There we go. So that tray comes out with no real issue. Empty box. So we'll move that out of the way. All right, let's do our check of things. So here's one big flat pack that looks like it's got the baton parts. Here's another pack that looks like it's got a head in it. So there's 2 so far. There's 3. And I think that might be it as far as loose accessory packages. There's 1 piece of cardboard there. And then we've got 3 figures. So let's take the guillotine off of them and see if we can break them free here, but gently. So I'll undo that, untuck these feet. That looks like Bullseye. So there's 1, there's Daredevil, 2, and last but certainly not least, Elektra at 3. Okay, and that's it. We've got empty cardboard, so we will put that also to the side. And let's start looking at these packs, right? Okay, so first and foremost, we've got what looks like a Bullseye head in this one. So we'll undo. I appreciate how just simple this is, right? It's not sealed on all ends. It was just twisted and crumpled together so that it stayed shut. I like that. It's less of a use of an adhesive or anything like that. Okay, so in this one we've got, wow, look at that. That's very cool. Elektra hand throwing some little daggers, and 3 other hands on there. All 3 of them very different. We have a very short blade in there, and then we have a very excited Bullseye head. Okay, since I've got the Bullseye head in my hands, let's go ahead and take a closer look at this one, right? So there we go. Very cool sculpting on this thing. I appreciate the missing tooth. What a fun detail, and it's not just a painted thing. It is truly sculpted in there. You can see there's a little wedge that goes all the way back to have that missing tooth, but where you can also see the pink up underneath. Just a nice little extra thing for some realism. The Bullseye is truly etched into the forehead, so it is recessed in there. Very neat to see, and it almost looks like it, but just the shadowing is what makes it pop a little bit more. There's like there's any paint or anything in there, which is good. It's appropriate. The tongue, everything's very good. I'm kind of bouncing around here. I was very excited to notice that about the Bullseye. Then you can see even around the eyes, there's a little bit of dark shading just to show just kind of evil. Like it's almost like a very, very, very faint gray or black, just to really sell that he's a nut, right? But everything is painted very well, even the eyes. He might be crazy, but he's got some very well painted eyes on there. I just love the detail on this. Otherwise, pretty solid, right? So no hair to worry about. It's sculpted in that flesh tone, the lighter flesh tone. And I've dropped it, so that means we are done looking at that Bullseye head. So let's move on to the Elektra hands. So we've got multiple to deal with. Here's a, looks like she just threw something, or she's doing the wink and the gun, right? Right, that's what that is, and very well sculpted, right? So it's clear that it is a hand, but then it also looks like it's got some of that glove-like texture to it, right? See, so like you've got some hand detail with like the tendons and all that, but then you've got like some wrinkles of like fabric for the glove. So very neat for that. So there's one option of a hand. Here's another option. This one is just a grip hand. You know, same amount of detail, right? So basic hand, but also looks like it's kind of got the glove to it. And I kind of got a hint of some fingernails on there. So I just want to look a little closer. Is this one that truly is a glove, or is it just painted? Because that is a very pronounced thumbnail right there. This one might just be painted. Let's take a look at this one as a reference. Yep, this one's definitely, I'm going to say, just a plain hand painted, because this one has a covered up thumbnail. So there's one where it kind of skimped on it, but yeah, it's okay. I'm not gonna really worry about it. And then this one is a clenched hand, but it is a clenched gloved hand because we do not have that pronounced thumbnail going on there. And we can see kind of the fabric wrinkles going on that because the fingers are pulling it in. And then the last hand that we have is this one here, also a gloved hand, which I would hope so, because I mean, I would think it's highly possible that this was made for this pack, or at least this attachment piece was, right? But it is a splayed out gloved hand. You know what, this might be a reuse of a gloved hand, but this is cool, right? So the clear that kind of shows like the daggers are being thrown. Would not want to be on the receiving end of that, but all of this is a very soft rubbery plastic, so it's not very sharp, not very unsafe. Some issues that I see, obviously it's got a little bit of curve to it, so that needs a little bit of correction. The daggers are painted very well, right? So the black, I mean, all painted on this clear, the silver, the black, and then the silver again. You can see some of the silver got a little sloppy right there coming in. But one thing that really drew my attention was in looking at the white for the fingers. It looks like it definitely seems to spread onto that clearish plastic. So unfortunate, it makes the fingers look a little bit wider than they are, and it's just an unfortunately sloppy line on that one. So I guess, I mean, it looks like this was attached and then painted, because I mean it looks like it's a separate piece, but it's hard to say. Yeah, I'm gonna say that it must be. Anyway, moving on, the last thing in that little pouch was this this very short blade. This is just cast black plastic, no extra special details to it, but I mean if it's designed to be for a ninja, then you know it would be. You know, I want it to be dark, but always opportunity for something to help make it pop. Can I say off the top of my head what it would be? No. Maybe like a tiny bit of silver on the end to make it just look like it's super sharp. That little bit of metal that would be showing through it. Anyway, let's take a look at this other pouch and see what we have in there. This one also just twisted and crumpled at the end, which again, I appreciate that. The less glue, the less all kinds of things like that we have to use, the better. Okay, so dump that one out, and that is empty. And here's a check of what we had in there. You know what? I thought those were Elektra hands. Those, I stand corrected, these are Bullseye hands, which would make sense that it was in there with Bullseye, of course. Wow, I'm sure somebody was probably on the other end saying, those are Bullseye hands? You're slightly mistaken. See, I saw the white and I just went with it, but these are the Elektra hands that we've got. So 2 fisted hands that come in there. So we got 2 fisted hands, 2 size, right, for her Raphael cosplay. Granted, she is dressed in white in this one, but typically she's depicted in red. Now this is definitely one for a ninja right here. So that's a nice long blade. And then we've got some amazing Medusa hair going on here. Okay, but let's take a close look at this, right? So this is a lot. This is a massive head because of this hair, because this is a very, I mean, it is a rubbery plastic that's extending off of it, but it's a very thick cast rubbery plastic, so it creates quite the mass. Also quite the prevention for the ability of the head to tilt upward and probably much downward with these front curls. So just something to be mindful of, but we do still have the headband, and I appreciate that it comes out the back with that flexible white plastic. But then the face, I mean, the hair is just wonderfully sculpted. I love how it's, you know, just up and all over the place, and just, I mean, it looks like Medusa, right? Paint the face green or gray or whatever you want it to be, make some snakes, and there you go. The headband is raised off of the head, so it is sculpted on there. It's not just a painted band. You can kind of see the flesh tone raise up right there underneath the white just a little bit. Yeah, so it is part of the head. If you're thinking about like customization options for this one, be mindful that that is a piece. The rest of it is painted very well, right? So the eyes, yet again, I mean, just, it is magnificent, the amount of detail. Look at that. Especially at this angle, you can definitely see as the light's bouncing off of the eyebrows, the eyelashes, underneath the eye, and the eyes themselves. They just did a wonderful job on that. No major issues aside from seeing where the flesh tone peeks through on the white a little bit right there on that ridge. But otherwise, this thing is super cool. All right, and back to these little hands just real quick. They are identical, just different hands, different sides. And they are a gloved hand because we do not have a pronounced thumbnail that is visible there. And you can kind of get that idea of fabric over a fist on it. So there we go. And here is our sword, which is very cool. And it is of a rubbery, flexible plastic, so a little bit safer, less of a danger. And the handle is very flexible, which is good for putting it in a hand, right? It's a little less likely that damage can happen or, you know, something can snap. Just old memories of older, more stiff plastic toys and fingers and hands just snapping off. But this is in that black plastic, so the handle is in black, but there's a lot of detail right there for the wraps. I do like that. I always would love to see something to make it pop out just a little bit more. The silver is painted very well. I can feel something right here. It almost looks like if I had done this, I would be like, oh man, I let a hair get in there. But you know, I don't know. I would assume that that's not a hair. Maybe a fuzz floating around when it got painted, but it's certainly not on the other side, and it certainly is raised. I can feel it with my fingers. But otherwise, you know, pretty well done. And then the last that we have in here, the size, and these are, yeah, they're identical. So let's take a closer look at one of them. Flexible plastic yet again, with the black handle. I like the details on that. Very well done, and I appreciate that the end here is also painted silver. And they even managed to get right there where the wrap crosses over. It stayed black, and then there's silver underneath. So they didn't really cheat with the detail on that, and there's even a little bit peeking through on this side too. So very cool to see that. And then the silver is well done on these. So yeah, I'm very thrilled about how they pulled off those sides. All right, now let's look at the Daredevil pack. So 3 packs, 3 people. It only makes sense, right? would have made sense for those Bullseye hands as I was looking at them, calling them Elektra hands. But anyway, moving on from my silliness, we've got 2 Daredevil hands, one a fist, one a gripping hand, which definitely helps, and we'll take a closer look at that in a second, with gripping these batons. And then we've got these fantastic ropes to go on one end and another end of the baton, just so you can really do some super cool, amazing man without fear acrobatic views with those batons and doing an attack. Okay, so looking at these extra fists, right? So this one is in a grip. We do have a pretty pronounced thumbnail right there, so it looks like they kind of just cast a plain hand in this red plastic instead of doing an actual glove like this fist hand has. So, you know, I wonder if there could have been a gloved male hand out there about this size that did not have pronounced fingernails, so it would, you know, match up. Obviously, this is something you have to look really close to see, but it's just one of those little things. It would have been that nice little extra detail to it. And then the batons, identical pieces, right? So probably cast from the same mold with this maroon plastic, and they're fairly soft, so they are flexible. And then we've got the holes there for those ropes to attach to, and then there. So just casting that plastic, nothing extra to them. The only thing I would say is it'd be cool if there was like some black or maybe even a darker maroon in there, just to kind of make it pop a little bit more. But the shadow does do some work on that to make it show through. All right, and then here are the ropes, whatever this material would be made of. But there we go, and it's a flexible gray, but it is molded into this shape. You know, they could have saved the need of having to do 2 of them by having one that was wired. Yeah, how cool would that have been? But anyway, I am thrilled that these came with it because they're super cool, and it just adds that little bit of dynamicness to the display. So there we go. You just plug it in and boom, you got it. Daredevil's ready to do some crazy acrobatic flipping of these batons. But that's everything as far as accessories. So let's start taking a closer look at our characters. And we're going to work backwards like we did with the accessories. Since we started with old Bullseye's accessories, we will start with Bullseye himself. And let's see if my focus seems to not want to hit the Bullseye. Okay, there we go. We'll go manual on it. So there he is. You know, first impressions, really neat looking. Admittedly, I'm not a huge Bullseye fan or follower. So, you know, but I do recognize this general overall look, right? So this is definitely costumed. We had a head that was not in a mask, but, you know, this one is definitely cool. So let's see if, there we go. Autofocus is going to work with us. So he's got the hood on, the mask, or we'll call it a hood. He's got the hood on, and this is cast in the lighter flesh tone, just like the other head, with the black painted on it, and you can kind of see it missed the mark ever so slightly right there. But the eyes, again, masterfully painted, and I do love the large bullseye target on the forehead because the white helps show some of this sculpted, the creases right in there, just to show how tight this hood is. And then we've got that missing tooth with the teeth closed, so it's not quite as pronounced, but it is still there. And I love that on the other head you can see it even more for detail-wise. Okay, flexibility of this. The neck is attached to the torso. Looks like this is a reuse of a good old classic one that is probably around a lot. So tilt, you know, it's okay. It's actually really, you know, kind of really not some is what I'm gonna say. But let's see about the up and down. So we do have this hinge up in there on the ball or with the ball. So looking up is definitely very good. And then looking down is also just fantastic, right? So I do like when it's set up that way because it gives so much range of motion. And then of course we've got the good old Exorcist full rotation there. And then coming on down to the shoulders, we've got butterfly joints on here. So that goes really far back. Look at that thing. That is a lot of range of motion for him. So he's ready to be quite flexible. The only thing, and I appreciate that they painted the white all the way over here so it doesn't stand out so much, not like just black. And the line continues so long. So, but as it goes further back, it does break the line even more and more, but it at least doesn't break that white and still kind of keeps that overall shape. The shoulder does have rotation ability. It is It has to be a little convinced to do it, but it definitely does it. Not a lot of forcing, just a little bit of encouragement is what I'll say. So no forcing of the joints, just encouraging them to, do what is asked. And then we've got the bicep tricep with good rotation, and it has that curve on the rounded shoulder right there. So it does rotate very well. We've got the double visible pin joints that we can see. Now it does not go terribly far, again, because the musculature, as usual, always gets in the way. But these the bracers, the part of the glove, I should say, is painted, so it's not something that's large, that's bulky, that's getting in the way. No forearm rotation, a little bit of looseness in the joint, which makes it look like there's rotation, but there's not. Wrist does rotate, and it does do the forward, backward, right? And then same thing on the other side. This wrist also rotates and does the forward, backward as well, and we saw that there are several other hands to use on that. So there we go. And here in the mid-torso, or the lower rib cage area, we've got that typical joint right there, which, the sculpting does go fairly high on it, right? So it continues up in a slight line up in there. So that does help. When you're flexing it backwards, it doesn't stand out with this big flat spot so early. But it does bend backwards very well. Forward, so there's 1, 2 positions, and then 3 positions, and that forward bend is very good. So not too shabby. Let's see about waist rotation. We do, but it is the flat across, and it does have this belt, which can potentially help block it. There we go. Let's shift that down on his thigh a little bit, which it does hold it in place very well, because it is still a pretty tight fit, and then that can kind of help mask some of the rotation, because the belt does kind of shift with them a little bit. And it does look like it will come off, because it's like we got a little snap right there. But I don't ever like to test my luck with these soft rubber plastic snaps, because it's always just so hard to get it to go back. And you guys don't necessarily want to watch that, I wouldn't think. But this is cool because it is cast in that white rubber flexible material, so it's neat. Yes, it is supposed to be that all white look, I get that. But how cool would it have been if this was just a different color, right? The little wrappings back here. But I get it. It's on the back. Why would they do that? Because who's going to see it? Well, a lot of people are going to see it because they're going to be sticking this blade in there. See? So there we go. But anyway, moving on. This the legs, let's see about that flexibility. So this actually doesn't really impede it too much. It does cause some interesting flexing there. So I don't think I'd have them in a split very long, because I don't like to test the integrity of this rubberized plastic. And it does take a little bit of maintenance in shifting things when you're bringing the leg back down. We do have upper thigh rotation, but it tries to drag this with it on this side. This side would be free, obviously, and the musculature gets separated. Now we got a double knee, so we got some good flexibility. He's ready to do that, limbering up for the battle. And we do have calf rotation, but it's flat across. So there is a boot, but it doesn't have a cast boot. This is just cast white plastic in a leg, like a normal calf shape, right? So it is definitely form-fitting. It does not raise up, so they didn't really have a boot top to mask the line, is what I'm saying. So forward and backward on the foot, and then, of course, he can be out of the fight due to a horribly broken ankle. And then same thing on the other side, just obviously with a little bit more freedom with this upper thigh. And then but you can see how the musculature easily separates. Paint, I didn't really see much that stood out, but if I look at this side and I kind of flex it back, very interesting how they've worked these lines, right? So if I rotate this one, the line breaks. If I rotate this one, the line meets but goes down, even though the white still goes up. I'm not sure what the plan was here on this this side. It's very very interesting, because it's got to be back like this one for that line to line up. Otherwise, if it's forward or kind of neutral, this is what we're looking at. But I guess this line does line up when it's back ever so slightly. But then if we go all the way back, it goes offline. Oh, there we go. So that goes a little bit farther, and that did it. So very similar, but the lines do end up taking different directions, and the white paint is a little bit overspray-y on that one. But there's really not much that stands out. I appreciate that there's even white back here on the back. Even if the black does show through a good bit on it, it's still there. On the wrists and forearms, that is also well done, because this was done in a white plastic with a little bit of black paint applied instead of trying to put white over black. So I do appreciate that, but you can see a little bit of the white showing through that that pinhole. And they did a good job matching up the black paint with the black here. It's just a little bit glossier where the black paint is versus that plastic. And then down here, we've got the white plastic with the very thin lines on them. And those thin lines are all done very well, I must say. So there we go. Nothing really major that stands out. In looking at this again, this could have almost used one more coat to match the brightness of the white there. But regardless, pretty cool figure. Let's see how he stands up on his own. There we go. That's our Bullseye. So let's move on. And since we were just talking a whole bunch about white and white showing through on things, let's look at this Elektra in all white, right? So I'm very, very much more used to her being in all red. Ooh, that's coming up. But, you know, I do like the all white look. It's pretty cool. She went away from the Raphael cosplay a little bit, but she still sports the size. Okay. So yet again, I mean, it's another very well sculpted face. Maybe it's the same. No, it's not, because we've got this on the top as opposed to just a cross. So she's got the full cap going on, the rubberized plastic on that, and then the hair looks like a little bit less. You know, it's like, where did all this hair come from? That's an uneven amount of hair. So, you know what, I dare not ask. She doesn't have to reveal her secrets. But we do still have the hair that's going to be in the way of looking up and looking down a little bit, because it will poke out a little bit there. But the job, like the sculpting, I should say, on the hair and on the face and the paint, is very well done, right? There are no issues with that. Now, the neck is attached to the torso. It's kind of that generic female body that we see a lot. And the head will turn. It'll tilt a little bit this way, but not much, and either way. Back, yeah, forget about it, because the hair is going to hit the shoulders. Forward a little bit, but the hair again hits the front. And then I think it's kind of just not going to happen if we do any kind of rotation. So there's not a lot of movement available for either head, I'm going to say. So she can look left and right. Obviously, she can look to her left a lot better than maybe necessarily her right, even though it's not bad. But there you go. Just be mindful. Know that hair is going to be in the way. With the shoulder, no butterfly joint, but good mobility that we see with this basic body. We do have the bicep-tricep rotation and pretty good rotation in the shoulder. And, you know, it does have that curve with the round. We've got the double pinless elbow. Yeah, that's cool to see. And I think we probably would have a little bit more flexibility. Let me try the other arm and see if it's ready to bend a little bit more. It's funny, one of them wants to bend. The other, there we go. So we'll do a team bend. There we go. That's good flexibility right there. Once we get the team bend going on there. So happy to see that. Forearm rotation, not there, but we do have the wrist. And this one does the forward-backward. And remember, we had a spare set of wrists as well. And then this one that is ready to hold a weapon. It does a forward-backward, but excellent full rotation. And we've got the mid-torso flex, so it doesn't have the detents where it snaps straight forward and backward. We do have good flexibility and movement all around, and it does bend backwards very well as forward, not bad, because we can see that it definitely does go a little forward. Waist rotation, obviously we're not going to have any with this generic body. And moving on down to the legs. The split is not terrible. I would expect more capability from it, but I get it. We're dealing with this same body. One thing that stands out is this upper thigh. You can tell it's just cast in a different shade of plastic, right? So it just doesn't match with what's going on right above it, unfortunately. But you know what? I guess we can't win everything. They didn't do a very good job of matching the colors, is what I'm saying. But we do have upper thigh rotation, and we do have a double pinless knee, which also helps with that flexibility, so she's good to limber up. And we do not have calf rotation, but we do have pretty good foot movement, right? So forward, backward, and then she can break that old ankle. And both sides have that same capability. Also that same downfall with the paint colors. It almost looks like we got 3 different shades going on here, right? So right here, here, and then here. These are fairly close, but they look a little bit off, just ever so slightly. But you know what? That's okay. I won't cry about it. What I will cry about maybe is this. Obviously this floats around a lot. If you barely even bump it, it shifts right back up. It does rest very well in the spot that it's supposed to be, but it's ready to pop right back up at any moment, right? So it is good for that shape, but it's not designed to stay. It needs something to hold it in place if this was the intent, because otherwise it's not really going to get in the way of movement. If it's held in place, it's not going to really get in the way of leg movement or anything like that, even forward or backwards. But it is just kind of floating on there. Now, let's take a look at some paint, right? So we already saw that the head paint is very well done. The what I can say that stands out the most, right, is the flesh tone mismatch. So here we've got yet another mismatch. Closer to this down here, right, where it is painted on the cast white plastic. Okay, magic cut. My memory ran out, so it stopped recording. But as I was saying, right, so we've got a few different shades of flesh tone on here between the cast plastics and then the painted, which is interesting because we have cast white plastic here, but the paint here matches this a lot better than it does here and here. So just a big opportunity. I'm curious why there were so many different shades. That's definitely, I would say, a quality control thing because it's such a noticeable difference with such a small line to separate them. That being said, pretty cool figure. I am excited to have an Elektra. Let's see how she stands without, will she stand without too much convincing? These feet are definitely in interesting positions. So we may have to revisit. There she goes. Yeah, so stands pretty well without a lot of convincing on her own. And let's move to last, but not least, in this one, good old Daredevil himself, right? So lots of red going on here, as it should be. The man without fear. Definitely thrilled to have this figure, and I can already tell he's got a lot of articulation going on, which I am excited about. The good news is, right, so a lot of red. Not a whole lot of craziness has to happen with this one because he's got the hood on, so we got a head that is cast out of the red plastic with the flesh tone painted onto it. Some of it travels up here along the side, but not enough to really cause an issue. It does look very cleanly applied, right? So I appreciate the shine on the eyes, and I think it's just a little bit of a glossy, lighter red paint on there to give that impression of the lenses, right? But the flesh tone itself and all that is painted very well. This is great looking. I mean, it is so simple. You would think, well, it's kind of hard to mess that up. It could be, and I think it's so well done. I'm quite thrilled about it. This is my first Daredevil, so even from childhood, I never had a Daredevil. But let's check out the movement. So this joint is very interesting because you can see it in just moving the head down ever so slightly, which not a big fan of that, but it does have a pretty good side-to-side look, and then the up and down, not too shabby, right? So definitely far above straightforward, and then the downward is good, but we do get that visible hole back there. And of course, with the clearance of the neck and the head, we've got excellent full exorcism. And the neck is attached to the torso. We obviously have a butterfly joint going on here. This one doesn't seem to want to go, I mean, it goes pretty far back. And of course, with it being red, we don't really have to worry about the seam being too obvious. Obviously, this is another one where the shadow can kind of help, but it's not quite as clean as I've seen on some other figures. But good mobility in the shoulder, right? So, and then it's kind of got detents, right? So it kind of pops into place. You can kind of see that happening. But we do have the bicep tricep rotation. Also kind of has slight pop to each position, but it does have full rotation all the way around just because of the way that it's done, which I always like. Double pinless elbow, will it cooperate? Let's give it a little bit of, nope. All right, so let's try the other one. Will it give us a good flex? No. So the elbows are definitely a little fixed, but it's not going to go too much farther past that, maybe to about right there where the musculature and the forearm hit to stop it. But it is nice to see the double pinless on here because it helps with the seamlessness of the costume, and that is a very well fit elbow triangle into the forearm and bicep tricep area. So very cool. No forearm rotation, but we do have wrist, and we got good forward and backward on that with very little hindrance with the way that this goes up like that. It definitely flexes backwards very well, and certainly the forward. Same thing on the other side. This is the fist to match the other fist that we had, and then that is the grip hand to match the other grip hand that we had. So same thing going on over here. Mid-torso, this is one that is not the U-joint like we saw on Bullseye. But it does have the free movement all the way around, but it does quickly create a gap when flexing it too far back. And it's not, it does, you know, the sculpt does go just about as high as it can on that because it goes almost to the edge, and I appreciate that. So, you know, there wasn't really much more that they could do. The sculpt maybe here on the side could go up, but it does create that gap if we flex it back, because it will flex back very far. Farther than you probably would need to do. But then if we go forward, the back gets a pretty significant gap on it, and then that right there. So it's just interesting to see that these are so easily allowed. Like, I feel like there was a way that this could travel up a little bit more. Maybe we'd lose some flexibility, but I'm not there at the design. But then, of course, we have upside down U-joint like we saw with old Bullseye. If we pull this belt downward, so that really adds to that flexibility. I mean, of course he's going to need some Spider-Man-like flexibility, and there we go. That really helps add to it. But that does sacrifice a waist rotation, so we got to kind of use this mid-torso area to do it. Legs, pretty good. Not a full split. Kind of disappointed to see that, just like Bullseye. But I believe they are basically the same legs, which is why. They look very similar. Let's see, are they? Yes, it does look like, yeah, well, yeah, it looks like they are. It's just the shadow and the gloss on the paint just kind of made it look a little weird. Upper thigh rotation, where we've got that separation of the musculature, forward and backwards, you know, for both of them. Fairly good, because we don't create a gap right there, just a little bit up there, and then the knee can take over the rest. Speaking of knee, we do have a double pinless knee for more flexibility, right? So there we go, as we expect. And then the calf rotation. But there's no real boot going on here because it's like a bodysuit type thing that they're implying. So it does have that quite obvious line break right there. But one thing I'm excited is this foot. So forward, backward, ankle break, and toe articulation. So ooh la la, so fancy. And both have that same capability. And then we've got, for the batons, the little side holster here. I do still have them plugged into the rope or chain, whatever it would be, and then these guys just tuck in right there, ready for battle. All right, so let's take a closer look. Not a whole lot of paint to look at, right? Because it's a bunch of cast red plastic. The DD on the chest looks like it's pretty well done, right? It's kind of hard to tell because it's a bunch of red on red. But let's get some focus going on here. Let's see how close can we get. There we go. Yeah, so it looks very well applied and pretty well centered. So, you know, no issue with that DD. Maybe slightly at an angle, but it's tough to tell because of the shape of the letter. Like, when does it truly start to curve upward? Anyway, not enough to really be an issue. And, you know, that's it. This belt kind of stays in place once you push it down. A little bit of paint looks like on the clasp to kind of draw out some red, you know, just to make it look a little bit different. But I'm going to say Mr. Murdoch did a good job at staying as red as possible. So yeah, excellent figure. Very happy to have this. Let's see how he stands with all this crazy flexibility I've been testing out. I feel like I've got him all kinds of off-kiltered here. So let's just see. Let's pop that. There we go. All right. And let's get that focus working with me. There we go. Standing just fine on his own. Let's see if Bullseye will still do it after I've picked him up, and will Elektra after I've moved her around. So there we go. All three of them. Will she stay? Let's let her lean just a little bit. There we go. All three of them standing fairly well on their own. And we'll be right back with some 360 views of them. Thanks. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, our Daredevil, the Man Without Fear 3-pack with Daredevil, Elektra, and Bullseye. All in all, I really enjoyed it. I think it's great. A little bit of a higher price on it, but I am happy because I have my first Daredevil figure and my first Elektra figure. Indifferent about Bullseye, but it's a nice little add. I like this hand tossing the little blades out like that. Very posable. I do enjoy that. I mean, look at Daredevil, the way he's standing on his own. So if you haven't picked it up and you were thinking about it, definitely pretty cool. I was a little bit, the Elektra flesh tone, I kind of got to call Hasbro to task on that one. That one's a little bit unfortunate. I think they could have done better on that, but doesn't take away from the set enough for me to be disappointed. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Hey everyone, we are currently running our Arrive Serpentor Arrive giveaway where we are giving away one Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Serpentor with Air Chariot. All you have to do is comment on this video to be entered to win. Each video during the giveaway period will have a secret keyword shared within the video, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Because the first person to comment that keyword gets pinned to the top of the comments and gets 2 entries for that video. A special thank you goes out to all of you for making it possible for us to be able to already start giving back. Well, that about does it for this trio. Thank you for checking us out and for joining on this collecting journey as always. And remember, we are posting new videos almost daily as new ads and releases come. If we ever do a review of something you are trying to find for yourself, please follow and DM us on Instagram at JKCollectsToys so we can help with the search if we don't already have a way to get one. Also, if you got anything out of today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and click that like button so you can stay up to date on any new ones. And if you'd like to see some more videos right now, there are a couple of quick links on your screen for you to check out. But no matter what, thank you for taking the time, and as always, we are all in this world of collecting together. Let's look out for each other. Thanks.